Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Sad news coming out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. The actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead inside their home. Preliminary reports were looking at an accidental, perhaps, death. They were thinking of carbon monoxide poisoning. But there are actually 5 causes of death, 5 ways death can be determined: homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, and undetermined. I would submit to you this death right now is undetermined. And a lot of people are jumping to there's foul play. Any good homicide investigator knows that every death that you respond to, you treat as a homicide until facts and circumstances and evidence indicate otherwise. So they're throwing out this word. It's suspicious. We need to wait and really see what are the reasons people are saying potentially that there's foul play involved. Yes, they were at a high level of decomposition, which indicates they could be dead for a week or more. Don't forget the air in Santa Fe, New Mexico is extremely dry. Undetermined what the temperature was in the house. All of those things will be determining factors. However, you have to, as I said, you have to always investigate a suspicious death if it is at all suspicious. There is no signs on the bodies of any blunt trauma, of any foul play whatsoever that can be determined at the scene. Now, there is death protocol at the scene of a death scene, and medical legal investigators do their checklist at the scene, which includes doing blood samples, and all of those things so that they can perform what's known as toxicology tests. So we're going to not jump to conclusions here, but we will report on this. So folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your cup of coffee, your glass of wine. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off the cuff zone, the police off the cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your #1 source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your #1 sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. So getting back to this case of Gene Hackman, and one of the things that we know is that Gene Hackman was 95 years old, and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, is 65. So Gene Hackman is an elderly man, and from what they're seeing now, of course, on the scene, they're not seeing any signs of foul play in regards to the bodies that they could determine on the scene. An investigation is underway for the death of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, who is 65. And ABC News is reporting that they were mysteriously found dead alongside a dog in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. The couple was found on Wednesday during a welfare check, according to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. There were no obvious signs of how they died. However, their deaths were suspicious in nature to require a thorough search and investigation due to all of the circumstances surrounding the scene, according to a search warrant affidavit. Initial autopsy findings showed no external trauma to either individual. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office said in a press release Thursday afternoon, the manner and cause of death have not been determined. Carbon monoxide and toxicology tests have been requested for both, with the official results pending, the Sheriff's Office said. The Academy Award-winning actor was found on the floor in the mudroom, according to the search warrant. It appeared that he fell suddenly, and he and his wife showed obvious signs of death. Arakawa was found lying on her side on the floor in the bathroom with a space heater near her body, according to the search warrant. Her body showed signs of decomposition. There was mummification to her hands and feet, according to the document. So these signs of death, they certainly don't just make it suspicious because they were found dead. Was there forced entry into the home? What were other signs? There was no blunt trauma that we could see to the bodies. We're going to go to Fox News, and Joseph Scott Morgan, who is a well-respected death investigator and scientist. I'm going to play him. He appears on Fox News and gives his account, his educated account to this story.
Gene Hackman's life coming to a shocking end inside his New Mexico home. Hackman and his wife found dead by maintenance workers, and the circumstances around their death is now being called suspicious. Police say Hackman and his wife could have been dead for weeks. Let's bring in Joseph Scott Morgan, former forensic death investigator. Please do share with us your thoughts as you've been able to give some time to what we know so far.
Well, as you guys mentioned, one of the problems is that this information is coming out is rather convoluted at this point in time. Not to mention, it's Thursday. They were discovered on Wednesday, and we're now just kind of figuring things out and hearing these bits of information that are coming out. The most important thing, I believe, at this point in time is to see what the state medical examiner has to say. We've heard about pills being scattered about, and pills being ingested are completely different. I'm kind of interested in the space heater that has been tipped over. And with the medical examiner's help, one of the things that will take place is that they will conduct a test that's referred to as a carboxyhemoglobin level, and not just on Mr. Hackman and his wife, but also, I would imagine, somebody involved in veterinary medicine will also attend to this dog as well to see if there is any carbon monoxide in their system, regardless of what the fire department says about what was there, what wasn't there. Now, my understanding is, per your last guess that you had, there was maybe evidence of forced entry. Now, that's troubling. We don't know what the source of that was. Was it EMTs or the police trying to get access?
That's the thing also. The forced entry could have been from law enforcement or from EMS or EMTs trying to gain access to the house. It doesn't automatically mean that there was foul play and someone broke into the house and killed Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy. So we have to wait. And there was no signs of the house being ransacked or signs of a robbery or anything like that. And we have to know who reported this, that there were signs of forced entry. That's important also.
Because, it was the finder was actually somebody that peered through the window. Did they not have access to that? So when you get into the house, you want to know, is there any sign at all of any kind of struggle that took place there? And of course, observations of the body. But, as we know, one of the things that's been saying, as ghastly as it is that they're talking about signs of decomposition, and not just decomposition, but mummification, which takes a bit longer than standard decomposition.
All right, to your point there, just reading through the affidavit here, one of the deputies was named Thomas. Deputy Thomas indicated he did not observe any indication the residence had been rummaged through or items were taken from inside the residence. He advised, based on his training and experience, that nothing appeared to be out of place while clearing the residence. That would seem to eliminate any possibility of a struggle.
Yeah, of a struggle. But, Mr. Hackman, of course, was up in age. He's infirmed. It would not take much to traumatize him. So you have to examine the bodies very, very thoroughly just to make sure that they don't have any trauma, because just because there's no rummaging that goes on doesn't mean that they have not been traumatized. And the way they're saying, they keep throwing out this term, guys, about suspicion and these sorts of things. Anytime you use that term, everybody's antennae go up at that point in time. And you have to be very thorough, very painstaking in this case. They'll do full body x-rays. They'll do exhaustive external examinations before they ever do a full autopsy. And just know this: the state medical examiner's office in New Mexico is superlative. They're a shining example in my field of medical legal death investigation. They have been for years. So I'm glad that their remains are now with them, and we can really get to the heart of this and find out what was going on.
I suppose, obviously time will tell. The deaths of these two individuals could have happened at completely separate times, not necessarily at the same time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons that it's really important that you take note at the scene when you have to, and we have to state again with this canine that's found as well, the measurement of what we refer to as postmortem interval. That is the moment since death, and we conduct certain measurements at the scene. It's important that they're done at the scene. But when you start to get off into this area of advancement and decomposition, and again, they're using this term mummification, we have to keep in mind as well that Santa Fe is a very arid environment. So that promotes mummification. And not to mention, we're coming out of the winter months, which is particularly dry, even more so than most of the time. So it's going to be rather complex. I beg people to be very patient with this before they jump to any conclusions, because you want all of the data to be in and you want to get this right. And that's what they're dealing with right now.
So again, you mentioned this, that despite the fact that there were no signs that there might have been carbon monoxide poisoning, you can't rule that out until you do the tests on the remains.
Correct.
But this idea that the affidavit says that they both appeared to have abruptly fallen. But carbon monoxide poisoning, I don't believe, would cause that. You'd get tired, you'd probably lay down and go to sleep.
Yeah.
But if they died of something else, what would have killed the dog? I mean, this is puzzling.
Yeah, precisely. And that's the real head scratcher. The nature of the relationship that they had with this particular dog. If there's anything that's more sinister here, perhaps, did they have a particular affection for this animal? I don't know. And nothing is off the table, whether it be any of the 5 manners of death: homicide, suicide, accidental death, undetermined, or natural. Everything has to be considered. And that's why it's so very important to examine all of these remains very, very carefully. And if they did die suddenly, and they both collapse simultaneously, which is kind of interesting statement that they're making there, there has to be a causative element. There is a huge age gap between Mr. Hackman and Mrs. Hackman. And so I don't know what her level of disease was, perhaps heart problems, anything like that. Was it a stroke? I can't imagine two people having simultaneous strokes. And then to boot, the dog passes away as well. That's why we have to be very, very careful moving forward with this case.
Yeah, and you have to start to ask yourself as well, if there was a time difference in death, was she the caregiver primarily to both of them? And if she had passed, leaving them without that care, that could be a different situation as well. We'll see when we get more details about all of this, but it is a mystery, that is for sure still. Thank you so much, sir.
So, something, we in this world of instant gratification, we all want to know the answer right away. And unfortunately, that's not the way the world works, the real world works, because this is a kind of a case that we're going to have to wait for the science to come back. But having said that, a crime scene unit did respond to this location and did process the scene forensically, all right, which includes taking pictures, measurements, and along with the crime scene unit, which they do their work first. And when they're done taking their measurements, taking their photographs, checking the home for areas of exit or entry for example, forced entry, if there in fact was a forced entry. Take a canvas of the inside of the house to see if there was anything amiss, if anything appears to be missing. Have the drawers been gone through? Has the house been ransacked? Which would be indicative of, an intruder. However, at this point, it seems like there are none of those things. So the next thing we have to look at, of course, is when was the last time, and this is important from the investigation standpoint, from a detective view standpoint, when was the last time that Mr. Hackman and his wife, Betsy Avakawa, were seen alive? That's an important thing. Now, another thing we go to, of course, are their electronic devices, their cell phones, their laptops, their computers. Do they have video inside their house and outside their house? What can be seen from canvassing, looking at this video? Of course, never neglect this. A canvas of the neighborhood, knocking on people's doors, asking them, have you seen them? Apparently, they were reporting that it was a wellness check that found them dead. However, there was other stations reporting that it wasn't a wellness check. It was an exterminator that looked in the windows and may have saw something amiss, and he called security. Security called the police, and that's what got the ball rolling. So there's a lot of information that may be inaccurate at this point, but they're going to do a thorough investigation. This is the same police department, Santa Fe, New Mexico, that investigated the Alec Baldwin shooting on the Rust film set. I recognize a lot of them. The chief, who I'm going to put on the screen right now, he was one of the first responding officers at the Rust movie set shooting. So just keep that in mind. And they seem to be very humble police, and not they don't want to guess. They want to give facts. But right now, there are not a lot of facts. Let's hear from the New Mexico Police Department.
You know, we've struggled to release as much information as we can, as we have. There may be a press release that comes out this afternoon. You know, the search warrant was executed just before 10 o'clock p.m. last night, and so they've been working diligently through the night and starting again in the morning to completely process the scene. And so we're still in the preliminary steps of the investigation. There's not a lot of new information that's available, but you know, we will try to include that in our press release this afternoon as soon as the investigators hopefully are finished processing the scene.
Can you confirm if they have been deceased for a long period of time? I was told maybe a week or two.
You know, all I can say is they have been deceased for quite a while. You know, that's a determination that's better suited for OMI and the experts, but it sounds like they had been deceased for a while, and I don't want to take a guess in reference to how long that was.
Who found them? Was it these two maintenance workers, I believe?
So from what I understand, there was a gentleman that was doing some pest control work that had gone to the Hackman residence, and he noticed that they weren't home, which was odd, I guess, and as far as he was concerned. He made contact with a security officer that was there, either patrolling or in the subdivision, and then it was a security officer that went to the house and had discovered the individuals in the home.
You guys are ruling out foul play, though.
We're not ruling it out. What I did state was there was no obvious sign or indication of a foul play. There was no immediate sign of foul play. I haven't ruled that out yet. This is an investigation, so we're keeping everything.
You know, it's as I repeated, and I'll repeat again. There's 5 manners of death. All right, homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, and undetermined. Right now, this is undetermined, and the press is jumping all over this, and they want immediate answers. You know, of course, because this is a world famous actor. You know, Gene Hackman. We all know him. We all love him as an actor. Well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but I think most people consider him to be the everyman's actor. You know, the regular guy actor, and he's been around forever. You know, And of course, you see on the screen that was one of his most famous roles, The French Connection, where he played Popeye Doyle and won an Academy Award for it. So he's beloved. He's a beloved actor. And this becomes interesting, and it becomes everyone wants to know what the hell happened here. And they want to know it yesterday. But guess what? Investigation takes time. And some of the tests that they do, for example, the toxicology tests and then the blood tests where they try to find out, are there any signs of gas? For example, they were thinking carbon monoxide poisoning, or supposedly they had a space heater. Is that what caused their death? But those tests take a while. And toxicology, to find out what they may have ingested, can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So none of these answers are going to be, we're not going to know for sure for quite a while. But every day the press will be demanding to know, is this suspicious? Was there foul play? Who did this? And the chief is being very calm here, and he's telling them the way it really is.
On the table, I think the autopsy is going to tell us a lot, and any evidence that we collect, but I haven't ruled any of that out yet.
Can you talk about the carbon monoxide aspect? I know they tested for that.
Yeah. So obviously it's not I wouldn't say odd, but it's not normal to find 2 people deceased in a residence. That's concerning. And then there was also a dog that was in a kennel that was also found deceased. We don't know the cause of that, obviously, but on our experience and working on cases like this, that is a possibility. Because of that, we called in the fire department, we called in P&M to go through the house, do some testing to figure out if it was even safe for our officers to go in and process the scene and execute the warrant. They stated that it was safe. I don't have the details of exactly what they located or what they didn't locate. It was determined that it was safe. We had been going in and out of the house. I don't know if that affects, if there was a concentration of any gas, including carbon monoxide. So, that's yet to be determined.
What did it say to you that the front door was open when their bodies were discovered?
Yeah, they were home. So, I don't know if that was, if it was left ajar.
This coming from the chief, coming from the horse's mouth and not from the press, he's saying there was no indication of the front door was open. So wouldn't it be possible in a neighborhood like Santa Fe, New Mexico, that people feel so safe that they don't lock their doors? Are there still places in this country that people feel safe like that? I think there are, right? So maybe the door was unlocked, or as they said earlier on, if the door was or there was a forced entry, could that have been enacted by the police or by EMS to get into the house to see the conditions of the people that lived there, because they were told that something was wrong, and so they perhaps, and I'm not saying for sure, but because the chief is saying no, that's not what happened. Let's get back to the chief here.
There was a crime that had occurred. There was no indication of that. As far as there could be a multitude of reasons why the door was open.
Obviously, a very high-profile case. You're getting attention from all over the world. How does the department handle that?
The same way we handle every other case, with caution and with facts. We want to make sure that we get the investigation completed properly, and we want to release the proper information. And sometimes that takes time. And so I just ask people that, and in the media, to be patient. We will release as much information as we can when the time is right and when they're factual.
So just to clarify again, right now you guys aren't leaning one way or another. The investigation is completely open to the cause of their deaths?
Yes, it is.
In your experience, Sheriff, have you ever come across something like this before in your county?
Me personally, there have been cases. We investigate deaths all the time. Some are natural causes, some are criminal. And so, we have a great investigative team, and I can guarantee you that they're going to work this case. They're going to look at every aspect, and try to figure out the exact cause. And I think the autopsy is going to be key. and the toxicology. But again, in my experience, that could take a while. And so I just ask that people be patient. There's rumors and people, I think, coming to their own conclusions. And I just say, just wait for the facts.
There were 2 other dogs found in the home alive, correct?
Yes.
Where were they found?
Well, they had access to in and out of the house. Obviously the door was open. I don't know, again, the reason for that. I think there was a dog door where they had access to come in and out of the house. So they had access in the house. The other dog didn't. He was in a kennel or a crate, however you want to explain that. It's concerning that everyone in the house, including the dog, is deceased.
Do you know the last time that anybody heard from Hackman or his wife?
We're still trying to make that determination.
The pills that were found next to his wife, those were prescribed to her?
I don't know that off the right now. I know that there was some pills that were located. I don't know. I won't comment on what they were exactly. That information will be passed to OMI, so that'll help them make the determination. And so I don't have the exact information on the pills right now.
Is there still an investigation going on at the scene?
Yes.
Any anticipation on how long that'll take?
However is necessary, however much time is necessary. We want to do a complete and thorough investigation.
So, I think the chief answered a lot of questions. One of them, a question that I think we all would have is, well, how come one dog was dead, but the other 2 were in and out of the house and those dogs were alive? And he just answered that. And the answer was that the one dog was sort of locked in like a kennel type situation. And the other dogs were free to come and go through a dog entryway. So that answered it. As far as he also answered the question about forced entry. Was there any forced entry? How did, was there anyone forcing their way into the house? And he answered that the front door was open and unlocked. So that I asked the question of the chat, is this a part of Santa Fe, New Mexico? Is that in a community where people can feel safe and not locking their doors? And someone in the chat answered, yes, it is. And there are communities like that across this country that are like that. D.D. Robert from the chat. My husband speculated about a gas leak or something, but I told him that they probably lived in a newer home. Well, D.D., it's still a possibility. The only thing that's going to confirm or eliminate that is the tests they do on Gene Hackman's blood and his wife, Betsy Arakawa's blood. And of course, the toxicology, that'll take a while. Toxicology could take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Dorothy M., doesn't matter old or new, my house is 18 and I have seen carbon monoxide in newer homes. Yes, it's the silent killer, as they say. Everyone is supposed to have a carbon monoxide alarm in their house, right? And it is the silent killer. So we don't know their cause of death. Of course, everyone wants to know yesterday what was the cause of death. And of course, the bodies were in a state of deep decomposition. In fact, Betsy Arakawa was reportedly mummified. And you heard Joseph Scott Morgan say before when we pulled him up that this is an extremely arid climate. So the mummification of a body can be expedited in a climate like this. Patty O'Grady from the chat, this is so sad. We should all be checking our smoke carbon monoxide detectors. I actually plan to add 2 more this weekend in our house just in case my son checks our heat system regularly. So we don't know, Patty O'Grady. It's always a good idea to check, but we don't know what their cause of death is. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button on the screen. Give us a thumbs up. Ring the bell. Share us with your friends and your family. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with Cannon, 5 different levels. And we appreciate all our fans, our friends, and our subscribers who keep this channel alive and keep it going. Frank Marsha, Bill, believe it or not, I have friends who live here in North Florida in a small town, and they don't lock their doors. It is a very wooded area as well. Well, Frank, there are places where people feel safe. I would not recommend that no matter where you live, but there are people that feel safe about doing that, and we all recognize that. Brad from the chat, what happened to Gene? Brad, we don't know yet. That's what this whole show is about, is that we're just reporting to you what the facts that the sheriff's office, the Santa Fe, New Mexico Sheriff's Office is reporting, what the media is reporting. But at this point, no one, and I repeat, no one knows the cause of death here. So people, of course, want to know, and they're going to conjecture. And until they give some facts out to the press, there's going to be all kinds of conjecture here. Yes, Gene Hackman was 95 years old. When you think about that, and no one wants to see anyone die at any time, but that's one hell of a life. He had one hell of a life, this man. He was a worldwide famous actor. We all know his face. We all know him from, I believe he was the recipient of 2 Oscars. Yeah, it's a tragic loss. And right now, it's an undetermined cause of death. We don't know what the cause of death for Gene Hackman was. But look, they're going to stay on this. And of course, there's all kinds of other investigative checklists that they have to do. But in this case, the science of investigation, the autopsy, the toxicology, the blood tests that are testing for gases, carbon monoxide, the space heater. The toxicology will test to see if they had ingested any pills or anything like that. Was there any foul play? Initially, when I heard about this case, and I don't like to conjecture either, I thought, could this have been that Mr. Hackman died and then his wife took her own life? But then it didn't make any sense about the dog. Why would you kill the dog too, right? So what really sort of makes sense, potentially this could have been from some gas, some poison that caused the death of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy. This is from ABC News.
ABC's Alex Stone for more. Alex, I know you just got that search warrant. What sticks out to you from what investigators are saying there?
Well, yeah, we've got the search warrant right here. And in it, they say that this was suspicious enough that they needed to search the building. And let me just bring you through it a little bit. As we just got this, a detective says that maintenance workers were called to they called the sheriff's department. The deputies arrived. They found a door that was ajar at the home, and then they made entry. They went in. They found a female, Betsy Arakawa, on the ground near a countertop in a bathroom. There was a space heater near her head. There was an open pill bottle with pills scattered on the countertop there. They found a dead German Shepherd dog near Arakawa. And then in a mudroom, they found Gene Hackman. It appeared he had suddenly fallen. They say that his sunglasses were near him, but there were other dogs that were alive on the property, and everything else was locked and secured. No obvious signs of death of what it was. They are looking at carbon monoxide. They got no readings of it. But Diane, they say they don't know why they died.
And Alex, we also just learned the gas company is assisting in this case. So what's the latest on that, and how do they now go about looking into whether it was carbon monoxide or not? And how do they know that if the gas was present and then maybe escaped the house?
Well, yeah, and it looks like that they had been dead for quite some time. Not to get too gruesome, but their bodies had decomposed and nobody had seen them in weeks. That if it was a carbon monoxide leak or some other gas, which, by the way, the gas company responded. They are now helping out investigators, but they responded to the scene. They found no signs of any gas leaks. But if there had been one weeks before and the door had been ajar, then that gas could have escaped through there and there would be no signs of it. So the autopsies will hopefully answer some of this. That could be weeks down the road if they do toxicology. The investigation, if they find any signs of a leak, right now they have not found any. They don't know what this was yet. based on these documents and this search warrant that we now have, they don't know if this was carbon monoxide poisoning. They are looking at it. That still seems like probably the most likely scenario, but they've got to look at everything. It is suspicious, and they got to figure out why they died.
All right, Alex Stone, thank you.
So again, very interesting, and no real answers as far as no one has answers right now because they're not going to. Because as I said earlier on in this case, science, and we have to wait for science to solve this case because the normal, I shouldn't say the normal, but the investigative steps, canvassing the neighborhood, searching the home, searching their cell phones. I'd be interested to know, when was the last time they took a call on their cell phone? When was the last time they were on their computer? When was the last time a neighbor or neighbors saw either one of them? When was the last time they conferred with their family? When was the last time either one of them had been to their doctor? All of these are questions that the investigators should be asking. A deeper dive also, they'd be checking their financials, their credit cards. Is anyone else using their credit cards after they passed away? That's a possibility. I have to be suspicious. I'm a former detective sergeant, right? So you can't just not look at all these things. You have to look at everything. And, if someone's using their credit cards now, then that is very indicative of foul play, right? But at this point, again, we don't know. We have no idea the cause of death right now. Denise Green, I read they were building another home. Maybe construction workers were involved. Well, but, Denise, we don't know, so we can't just jump to that. There's no evidence pointing to that. Barbara, RN 54, toxicology is important. Barbara, I am saying that science, and that's part of the science of this, the toxicology, which can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to come back, is hopefully what will give us some of the answers to this. The autopsy will also give us answers, and maybe not, definitive answers, but they'll give us some answers to this case. Pauline Buckles, if she died first and he needed help, he would have called someone. Gen X saves the world. Dogs could have tore open dog food bags, went outside to eat out of garbage, had an automatic feeding machine. Well, the answer to why all 3 dogs weren't dead, just one dog, was because the one dog was sort of locked inside a closet or dog, whatever it was, a dog cage or whatever. But the other 2 were free to come and go. So that allowed them to go in and out of the house. Thus, if it was any kind of gas, they weren't exposed to it long enough for it to have killed them. Let's see. Click Chick Eastwater, they were spotted out 10 months ago. That's a long time ago. That doesn't help us too much. Marilyn from Tarot Clarity. It's sad to think that their children hadn't called them in weeks. They think they had a daughter, right? From what I heard, Mr. Hackman had a daughter. I don't know their relationship. Kelly P. Smith, Sergeant, all of your years' experience, have you ever entered a scene that's mysterious? Yes. You're presented with a scenario in a scene, and then you have to figure out what happened. But guess what? You don't do it alone. There are many professional investigators. And I mentioned once they responded to this scene, they would have immediately called the crime scene unit, right? First the detectives, then the crime scene unit. And they would do all the things that investigators do. And crime scene unit would forensically process this scene. They would photograph, videotape, take measurements, take note of where things were, take note of things like pill bottles that were spilled over. How does that look? Why did that happen, right? And then once the crime scene unit is done with their measurements, they're taking perhaps samples if there's anything that appears to be blood anywhere. checking to see if there are any areas that could have been forced entry, and photographing and videotaping everything. Then the medical examiner's office comes to the scene. And I mentioned an investigator called a medical legal investigator, who in most jurisdictions are physician's assistants. And they process the bodies on the scene, which includes checking the bodies for wounds, taking the temperature of the body, and doing all checking, of course, for rigor mortis, algor mortis. In this case, they were in extreme state of decomposition, which was mummification. There's something before mummification, I think, is called putrefaction. So they could have been dead as long as 2 weeks. And I'm not an expert on scientifically predicting time of death, but the medical legal investigators have a much better handle on that than I do. The medical legal investigators will accompany the bodies to the medical examiner's office and take part, or at least observe, the autopsies and report to the pathologist what their findings were on the scene, what they saw on the scene. Because a pathologist may look at even the colors of your hands, the colors of your fingernails. Sometimes that's indicative of a certain type of poisoning. But I don't want to jump the gun on this because I don't know. And no one knows right now. And more sophisticated tests will have to be performed than just looking at someone's hands or looking at the state of decomposition or looking at the temperature of their body. Because in this case, they were dead for a long time. It's maybe a week to 2 weeks. So temperature, I don't know. Ocean Girl 505 from the chat. In that gated community, your neighbors' homes are not right next door. Seeing when they last picked up their mail is vital. Yes. Yeah, but a lot of people don't pick up their damn mail often. You can pile up inside the mailbox, right? Randy Tolan, front door ajar is suspicious. Randy, under normal circumstances, I would agree with you. But in some neighborhoods, people don't lock their door, and they keep their doors open. And I don't know how much land Mr. Hackman had surrounding his house. It may have been several or numerous acres of land. So many people feel very safe in certain communities in this country of not locking their doors or even keeping their doors open. I know for most of us, it sounds crazy. Veronica, this is so fishy. Veronica, I think what I would say is it needs further investigation. I'm not ready to say there's foul play. I'm not ready to say it's fishy, but sure that we make sure that we do everything. We cross our T's and we dot our I's, and we make sure that everything is copacetic and we do everything by the numbers. And that is so important. Where's Nina? Everyone's different, I guess, but yes, I know people try to talk every day or two. Moth's mummy, double self-termination, if she ended him and then herself. Moth's mummy, I don't think there's really indications of that. The positioning of the body, many things investigatively that doesn't seem like it's really that something like that occurred. So again, it's just a tragic situation, and we're gonna have to wait to see what in fact is the cause, what was the cause, and this will all be done, and I don't want to say it ad nauseum, by science. We have to wait for the science to come back and tell us what happened.
Breaking overnight that you're waking up to right now. Legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife found dead in their home in New Mexico. News Nation's Xavier Walton joins us now with the latest breaking details. Xavier, even their dog was found dead. This is just shocking news. So what more do we know about what happened?
Marky, good morning. Extremely shocking. Also, it's just a sad way to start the morning. But the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office saying that at this point in the investigation, There are no signs of foul play, at least right now, in the investigation. That sheriff says that they found Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, dead in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home yesterday afternoon. The sheriff adds right now there's no exact cause of death, and they're in the early stages of this investigation. Reports suggest a neighbor might have been the first to actually alert police by calling for a welfare check. Their dog, you just mentioned that, was also found dead. Hackman has lived in Santa Fe since the 1980s. He lived there with his wife and renowned piano player Betsy, who he married back in 1991. She was 64 years old. Hackman, 95. Heart and stress issues did lead Hackman to quitting acting back in 2009. We're, of course, going to have more on this all morning long, but still shocking news, heartbreaking news, and really more questions at this point, the investigation, Marky.
Yeah, I mean, it's just surreal news to wake up to this morning. And of course, we'll learn more throughout the day. Xavier, thank you. Thanks for.
I don't think, someone put in the chat that the fire department ruled out carbon monoxide poison. I don't think they can rule it out because the poisoning would have occurred about 2 weeks ago. So that was the condition 2 weeks ago, couldn't it have dissipated or couldn't it have stopped? So I don't think they can 100%. The only test that is going to rule out carbon monoxide poisoning is the test that Joseph Scott Morgan spoke about earlier on in the show, and like a blood test to find if there was carbon monoxide poisoning inside the blood of Gene Hackman and or his wife. And of course, he even mentioned a veterinarian to test the dog to see if he, in fact, had carbon monoxide poisoning. So all of those things are the tests that we will need. And again, science is what's going to solve this case, not conjecture and guessing, and not the press putting pressure on law enforcement for answers that law enforcement does yet to have.
Hollywood actor Gene Hackman and his wife were found dead in their New Mexico home.
Quite the stunning details coming out. According to a search warrant, prescription pills were found scattered around his wife. The couple and one dog found dead, but no foul play is suspected yet. Here's ABC's Melissa Adon with the developing story.
On ABC News, Los Angeles.
So again, what do we have right now? We have to wait. That's what we have. We have an investigation into, a potential is. There's no one saying foul play. What people are saying that it's undetermined. And no one that follows these cases wants to hear the word undetermined. They want to hear foul play. They want to hear what happened. They want to hear what was and guess what? We do not know yet. Law enforcement does not know, right? But we're going to keep following this. And, I don't think every day we're going to get new information because, as I said, some of these scientific tests, toxicology, can take between 6 and 8 weeks to come back, depending on what the tests are. The autopsies. The autopsies probably have been completed, yet all of the results of the autopsies haven't because they have to do certain tests vis-a-vis the autopsy. So we're going to wait and we're going to find out accurately what occurred. All we know is that we pray for the soul of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy. And I always like to remember him like this. Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, back way before I even became a cop, That's the old pork pie hat that he's wearing. Great movie in which he won an Oscar for. So, folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great night, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.